Okay, we're live.
Welcome, everybody. I now call the Finance and Corporate Services meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. This is a virtual meeting as per the COVID-19 pandemic, physical distancing. We're going to be virtually. Members of committee, executive management, city clerk, and any other senior leadership staff are available to answer questions. The first delegation we have is an open delegation being provided tonight by Paul Marley, Vice President, and David Mills, President of the Barrie Baseball Club, concerning an expansion to the current stadium located at the Barrie Community Sports Complex. I'll now call upon Paul Marley and David Mills to provide their opening delegation. Please note that in accordance with the city's procedural bylaw, you will have 5 minutes to provide your comments. Ms. Cook, just before they start, do they get 5 minutes each, 5 minutes together, or their choice on that? I just want to clarify so there's no ambiguity.
Sorry, through you to Councillor Morales, they would get 5 minutes together because it is one delegation request.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Marley, Mr. Mills, the virtual floor is yours.
Mr. Marley and Mr. Mills, you're still on mute.
The mute. Sorry, I can't. I'm trying to find to get off the mute.
Okay, I think I'm off mute.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
You can hear me? Okay, thank you. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. We hopefully you have had a chance to review our paperwork that we had sent in. It gives you a good 20-year history of the Barrie Baycats. So what we've done on and off the field. You will see that the Baycats are a great city and community partner. And what we're coming to you today for is to help us out there at the stadium to make it better for our fans, and also to it has been 20 years. We virtually built the stadium and did a lot of stuff out there with the city, but it has been 20 years and there hasn't been any major changes or renovations to the park. We also felt that when we built it 20 years ago, we built as quick as we could because we're of time restraints, but also it was things have changed in 20 years, and there's a different requirement for our fans. We had earlier last year talked about the city about moving into Barrie, and that was one of the options that we had discussed, but it's a fairly major undertaking, and it's probably not on the books now with everything else that's going on. So what we're coming to you today for is improvements to the broadcasting area. We have to make it larger for all the new. The main reason is because of COVID, but also the mandate for our league, and also next year all the games are going to be shown on YouTube. So we need more space for the broadcasting crew, and really what you'll see with the picture we sent you right now, we're just jammed up there. So we need major renovation done to the press box to accommodate that. We also need a major renovations to our standing room area. We have very limited small standing room area at the park. And because of the limitations that are going to be put on, I think for the next couple of years, we've got to expand on our standing room. So we're looking at modifications to the seating area for that, a mezzanine for people to stand up at a higher level. So couple of more things. Like I say, the stadium is 20 years old and there's been no really upgrades. The design back then was not thought about in regards to the total fan appreciation. So we need basically to expand it and make it more fan friendly. Also, the city would be able to benefit from it because it would give them an opportunity to hold other events out there and have more viewing. So in the future, the Baycats are a great partner for the city. And from that, Dave, you got anything else to add? Then we can open for questions.
No, I think you've covered it, Paul, and just open for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Do members of committee have any questions? Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
Sorry, there, took me a while to get off mute. Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Marley. And I take it from the material that you sent us, you seem to be also suggesting you were looking at even a new stadium altogether in another location. Is that still a plan, or is that not part of the plans anymore?
Well,
In another location.
the Baycats would love to have a stadium, but the proposal that we talked about and just the feasibility of it going to happen in Barrie, we really think that it's a way down the road, like a long way down the road, and it's also millions of dollars. Like we realize that, so it's a huge undertaking, and maybe in the future with the combination of other things with the stadium in the city of Barrie somewhere, but that's probably 10 years, maybe 20 years down the road.
Okay, so is what you're looking for is $400,000, is that correct? You're looking for all of that, or you're looking for part of that?
No, I think that nothing has been done there for 20 years, and this would set the stadium up for the next 10 or 20 years. The press box area is a definite thing we have to do. Increasing the standing room area with a mezzanine and increasing the standing room area in other parts of the park is really necessary. It was an oversight when it was made 20 years ago. So it's time to, as I say, to fix what we have out there to make it more usable for not just the ball games, but if you ever have any other events out there.
And the $400,000 would cover everything that you're proposing?
Yes, it would.
Just in terms of a site in Barrie, have you ever looked at, and I have not looked at it beyond, I've actually played there, is the site behind the baseball diamond behind East Bayfield Community Center. There's a lot of land. It's not in the center of town, which would be ideal, but it's got lots of parking because the East Bayfield Center is right there, and especially when your baseball season's on, there's very little traffic at the East Bayfield Center, and there's washrooms, there's even potential storage there. Everything seems to be there. Is it a site you've ever looked at?
At the East Bayfield Center.
There's a baseball diamond behind it, and it's a big field. It's much larger than just a baseball diamond.
If I could answer that, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sure.
When we went to council, I guess it was 3 years ago now, for that Lakeshore position. At that point in time, I think a council was in agreement that there should be a park in Barrie. And then what you created was, I think was called a Sports Events Facilities Advisory Committee.
Yes.
I attended that on, I guess, 2, maybe 3 occasions. And certainly there was nothing coming forth in that regard at those sessions to see if there was any opportunity. So from that perspective, we just kind of at that point, not gave up, but we said, well, obviously, I don't think anything's gonna occur. And so that was kind of where we left it. And as Paul has indicated, that to build a stadium in Barrie right now, I think certainly the cost would be prohibitive unless the city has, so that was kind of the reason that we've said, okay, let's go to option 2 and kind of repair and fix what we've got out there now, and for the next 5-10 years, hopefully we can make a go of it there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I think maybe in the long run, maybe if there could be a site in Barrie, I think it'd raise the profile of the Baycats beyond belief.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're kind of forgotten where they are now.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Ms. McAlpin, I'll jump to you. I saw you turn on your screen.
Thank you, Chair Morales, for that. I just wanted to note for the committee that I don't believe the site at East Bayfield is large enough to address the needs of the Baycats in a stadium that suits them today and in the future. And in terms of city investments, into the existing site. There have been some, certainly not significant. Over the years, there has been about $30,000 in investments for upgraded batting equipment, the exterior building lights, rubber flooring, stadium field lighting, and some ballast. Those are not the types of upgrades that I believe the Bay Cats are looking for, but I did want to ensure that you were aware of that. And Rob Bell is on the line if you have specific questions related to the work that's been done at East Bayfield and what's available there.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. McAlpine. Councillor Jim Harris, I saw you and then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Yeah, I'm a baseball fan, I'll declare. But I also will say that as far as Barrie sites, I don't think of the Midhurst area as the center of Barrie baseball, although it's the center of the Barrie Bay Cats. I see Queen's Park as a very person where I recall Barrie baseball really being centered, and hardball, for example, was the fairgrounds. So I really do feel strongly, I agree with Deputy Mayor Ward, that, and I'm sure Mr. Marley and I believe is Mr. Mills would agree that the best place for the Bay Cats would be Barrie, where they've never been. So I would be supportive of efforts that got the Bay Cats into the city. And gee, if you couldn't put it in Queen's Park, wouldn't that be great? And we'll have a green monster in left field, but that would be fun too. So to protect the skateboarders. But I guess my question is, obviously the Bay Cats, Mr. Marley, the Bay Cats are a for-profit enterprise, are they?
We're non-for-profit.
Okay, thank you. So just kind of thinking about, contributions to Barrie baseball, Barrie minor baseball versus Barrie Bay Cats baseball, those kind of things.
We do, excuse me, we do sponsor Councillor, the Barrie Bay, the minor baseball. In fact, they just changed their name 2 years ago to the Bay Cats. And so we have a really strong relationship with them. And we do support them with clinics and at the park as well. So yes, we do. We have a connection with them.
Right. So as part of the fees to Barrie minor baseball, now Barrie Bay Cats minor baseball, you would get free clinics from the Bay Cats?
Yes, and as well, we do give a sponsor fee to them for one of their divisions.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and just curious, how many people do you feel the mezzanine would cover? Because I think, having watching baseball, being in the front row by the fence is the only place I want to be, not behind people. How many people would that serve?
Probably 100.
So 100 across the front?
Yeah, it would actually be a raised mezzanine behind the first base bleachers.
Okay, so is the mezzanine flat? By the picture, is it flat?
Yes, it is flat, yeah.
Okay, so along the rail, you're just how many people projected with COVID 6 feet? How many would get across the side of that? Just curious.
Well, not like on the rail, they have to split out, but the whole mezzanine would be able to hold probably 100 people.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So interesting. Okay. Thank you. I think those are all my questions for now. But thank you, and go Bay Cats.
Thank you.
I hope you have a season in 2021. Fingers crossed.
We're planning.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Obviously, we've seen the Bay Cats win more championships in the last decade or so than anybody else in the province. And I will profess, as Councillor Harris did, that I'm a longtime baseball fan. However, I have to admit I've never been to a Bay Cats game myself, unfortunately, and probably because of the location that it's in could be definitely part of it. It would have definitely a different feel if it was within the city limits. But you're coming asking for 400,000, and I'll be quite honest with you, the presentation doesn't really outline things very clearly in my mind. It seems like 400,000 is for a flat platform that's to go up along the first baseline. Is that correct?
That's part of it. The press box area is the one of the major areas that has to be expanded as well. we have about 12 people to do a game up there, and right now they fit into about 7 seats.
Have you seen a picture, Councilor Harvey? Have you seen a picture of the actual that was attached to the presentation?
Yes, I have read all the material that's been provided. I actually have the picture up to my right here on my
Okay.
iPad
Okay, well, you can see
as we speak. Now, just for curiosity, obviously, as a not-for-profit corporation, I suspect, opposed to a not-for-profit charity because of the nature of your business, is there any government grants that you could be applying for to assist you in with this, opposed to it being a 100% city ask at this point?
Well, it's a city property. I'm not sure if we can get a grant to build something on a city property. I haven't explored that, but
yeah. So with all due respect, I think that's something that you definitely need to explore, and it can even be a conjunction submission potentially with council support. But I think it's going to be difficult to expect that the taxpayers are going to be fronting this 100%, especially when right now we know there are several grants available at both the provincial and the federal level. And it's always a lot easier to get things approved when you can see shared costing opposed to 100% taxpayer costing in situations like this. But the ultimate goal, obviously, we'd all love to see a stadium. And I think kind of what may have not led to the other one becoming a fruition is the fact that it was being looked at as a waterfront facility, which I know caused a lot of concern with people with eating up part of the waterfront for a baseball stadium. But I will leave my comments at that, and maybe we can have some further discussions offline.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other members of committee? Questions, comments? No. Councillor Congo, go ahead. Is that a new? Is that a new card? Is that a new yellow card?
Oh, sorry. It's another meeting's card, but it was at hand. You can see my face and my Go
ahead.
No, it's good. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping to direct this to Mr. Mills and Mr. Murley. A couple of quick questions, just reviewing the package. So from a prioritization, recognizing that was a global ask for a couple of different pieces, is there anything in particular that you would want to see happen first, or would have a priority about what's most essential for the stadium if all funding was not available? Should it be available?
Certainly the councillor, certainly the priority has to be the press box, in that we don't have any room. And with the new mandate coming from the league, we just have to have space, and we just don't have space today. So that certainly would be a priority.
And follow-up question, if I may, with the press box, is it really about the structure around just space constraints, or is it anything to do with technology that ties into the press box?
It's basically the space where go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
yeah, it's basically the space that we have up there right now is way too small, and we've been making it work for the last few years. Each year we get a little bit bigger with requirements up there. Even if the CTV or Rogers come up with a camera, there's no place for them really to set up. They set up in a corridor where people are coming by. So there's the like I said, the 20-year ago planning didn't really take into account these kind of things. And now our games are going to be shown on YouTube all next year. So there's another element there that we require space for announcer.
Right. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, the urgency is really about making sure we can accommodate some of the broadcasting of the games, especially if our season might be a bit compromised with in person. I'm wondering is there any urgency in a timeline around this coming forward? So I want to give acknowledgement to other colleagues around the table. Would be lovely to see the Baycats in Barrie. I wasn't sure, although that might be, you know, something that would take more time, but is there time to have deliberations around that? Is that open for a conversation? Or is there any type of pressure around seeing funding, if available, to move forward quickly? Or is there a bit of time to kind of revisit those comments and see if there is anything else that's possible? And maybe I'll rephrase my question. So with this type of investment ask, if there is this firmly seen to be kind of the future location that will continue on for the Baycats, or is there any interest in kind of having any type of exploratory conversation around whether or not there are other sites that might support the Baycats, and whether or not something within Barrie is even of interest to explore?
Mr. Marley, Mr. Mills?
I'm sorry, was
I was thinking, sorry, I was thinking that was a comment to you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, to either of you. Yeah.
I think we've, frankly, I don't think there is a place right now, and the work that I've certainly been dealing with your previous committee, it just does not appear to be a space for the location at this stage, unless that something unforeseen came up, somebody moved out of town, like with lots of acreage. I don't know, but right now, I think our priority certainly, because of this season, we've got to do something at the park to get space. That's really the number one priority right now. The stadium is going to be at least 2 or 3 years away.
Okay.
If you were to find something.
Thank you. And then lastly, I'll comment maybe through you, Chair Morales, to Ms. McAlpine. So also with respects to Councillor Harvey's comment, I mean, we've seen some grants identified through the pickleball community that we've done letters of support with. So I'd say if that's open to Mr. Marley and Mr. Mills, I would encourage exploring that to see what you might be able to achieve through grant funding. But additionally, towards Ms. McAlpine as a question, as this goes forward at different stages, I believe it was Mr. Mills made reference to the past athletic committee of council. And although that is something that has changed, is it correct that the responsibilities of that committee now report up to city building?
Through Chair Morales to you, Councillor Kungle, it actually, and the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, it actually reports to this committee, which is why this was brought forward to this committee. So that any proposals, should this committee wish staff to investigate further, we certainly could. And as you've indicated and Councillor Harvey's indicated, there are some grant opportunities right now for organizations. They would likely need some indication from the city that it was supportive of this occurring on the city's property, and in order to make that application for the existing site.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McAlpine. And those are all my questions, Chair Morales.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. Anybody else have any questions? Mary Lehman and Councillor Rietma, go ahead.
Quick question, Dave and Paul, thanks for being here. So I just wanted to ask what kind of condition the IBL is in. It has been a struggle for some franchises in other cities. Others like Brantford have done well, I guess. What's the condition of the overall league? I guess that's a question more for you, Millsy.
Yeah, I think the league is certainly a lot stronger than maybe say 10 years ago, Mayor Lehman. There's been new ownership in Hamilton. There's been new ownership. Mississauga has moved to Welland, and they're very, very well
Yep.
situated in Welland. And Guelph has, was I guess 4 years ago now, not went bankrupt, but they did not continue the season. They now have new ownership. So overall, I think the league is in very, very good shape. It's 102 years old, so hopefully it's not going anywhere. And the meeting, this last IBL meeting, it looks like we will start our season in June 1st. We've expanded the date instead of May. We're going to probably start June 1st. That'll be decided next week. But that's the plan right now. And yeah, so we're looking for 7 in a row, and hopefully can make that happen. But it would be nice if we could get something going with respect certainly to the space out there. Barrie is looked upon as a model franchise within the league, and we're always being asked for advice in terms of how we are organized, how we play the park. And I must say that the park itself is a beautiful park. There's absolutely no question. It's probably one of the nicest parks in the league. And Rob Bells and his team out there do a tremendous job. So we don't want to move. We just would like to improve. And that would be kind of our message.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And thank you for being the Chicago Bulls of the IBL.
Councilor Rima, go ahead. Also, I could tell that we don't want to move. We just want to improve. You were just waiting to say that. There's no way that wasn't practiced. And if it wasn't, kudos. Go ahead, Councilor Rima.
Thank you, Chair Morales. A question. You've given us a price of $400,000. I guess I wanted to know how accurate that number is in your mind. And the second question I have for you is the press box. How much of that, if we only did the press box and didn't do the standing room, would that work to start with? And how much is the press box? And do you see the Bay Cats being able to contribute anything to this project in terms of dollars?
Okay.
I can answer part of that, Dave. The press box area is probably first of all, we budget $50,000 for design permits and fees. So let's take a whack of the money right off the top. And the press box area is probably 100,000, and the mezzanine is the rest. It all depends on like I say on what happens out there with the building in regards to the press box. Do we expand it for our needs now, or do we make it a bit bigger so that we don't have to come back in 5 years and say we want some more? So we have to we put this together fairly quickly, but we also we're thinking of the future. So it's hard for me to just to say the press box is this number because we haven't got that far yet. But that's the idea we had. The two of us on the Bay Cat ownership have been. I'm retired now. The other chap is. Are in the construction business. So where we can contribute to this project is all of the project management. So someone from your city staff does not have to take this on as a full-time job. I know you have people there. We would work with them, but we would carry the ball, and everything would go through the city. But there'd be no city costs to project manage this project. So there's no cost coming out of the city over and top of this here. We don't make any money out there. Like if you come out there, I've said this probably 40 or 50 times. If you come out there and we're in the playoff game against Bradford and you see 1,000 people in your first game you've been at, you would say, wow, these guys are rolling in the dough. Well, come out there on the 25th of May on the Thursday night when it's half raining, we're playing against Hamilton and there's 100 people there. The costs are the same. So any money that we do have, you'll see in our proposal. We have been very charitable back to the community with the Cope Dogs and scholarships and everything, the best we can. But as far as us being able to say we've been budgeting away $10,000 a year and we've got $100,000 ready to go for this, no.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma. Councillor Harvey, saw you first, and Deputy Mayor Ward.
Actually, just a follow-up question, Chair Morales, in regards to what Mr. Marley just said. Now, you said you're offering a project manager, which is one of the owners. Would you be expecting that that person's company would be the ones then doing the build?
No. We understand. We've been talking to Rob Bell about. We understand totally how the system has to work through the city. No, we would just fill that void of the time and effort of running around and dealing with people and making it work. There's no obligation for any of this. Matter of fact, this person who's involved with it wouldn't have the company to do this. The other person involved with it is me. So no, there's no company connection here or carry over that.
Okay, and just to follow up, sir, I can appreciate what you're coming here and asking for, and obviously it's an important ask, but you don't seem to have all of your ducks in a row when it comes to the true costing of what you're asking for, and you're providing a lot of hypothetical numbers that you can't back up, whereas coming forward to council, even at finance committee, with an appropriate presentation that has hard numbers, that shows how these things are going to get together, and also having secondary sources like grants that you've already applied for, in my personal opinion, would put you in a much better position than what it appears that you're in as of right now. But those are just my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Yeah, maybe to just move this ahead. Proposing to put a motion on the floor, and that would be that staff work with the Barrie Bay Cats. Staff be directed to work with the Barrie Bay Cats on plans for an expansion of the press box and a mezzanine, and opportunities for federal, provincial, municipal, and private funding opportunities. And the idea, municipal is in there as well, because I think maybe at the end of the day, we are going to contribute something. Maybe that money would come from our community benefits money, maybe it would come from somewhere else. But I think maybe staff needs to work with Barrie Bay Cats on the plans for the expansion and what funding opportunities are out there. I think we probably know about more funding opportunities than they do.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. Your floor is on the motion as printed. I just have one quick question before we get into discussion. The wording in your motion would essentially say that the city is going to support Barrie Bay Cats. Oh, sorry, support the broadcasting area and the mezzanine, and
work with them, yes,
and work with them to get grants. It's a little bit vaguely problematic for me, because it says we're going to help them get grants, but we're also kind of be supporting the projects. So it's kind of committing us to the projects, hoping for the grants. But if the grants don't fully cover it, the wording, unless you can help me clarify, the wording that I heard would essentially then be very softly still committing us, which would then commit us financially.
It's not my intention to commit the city to pay the full 400,000. The working with them is because we own the stadium, so I think we have to be involved in any expansion plans. We probably have the expertise to talk about how those expansion plans for the press box would work. The funding would be just to help them pursue funding opportunities. But it's not a commitment to do the work.
Could you read it again, sorry? Just for me.
Sure. Said that staff be directed to work with the Barrie Bay Cats on plans for an expansion of the press box and a mezzanine, and work with the Bay Cats on funding federal, provincial, municipal, and private funding opportunities.
Okay.
It's vague, but it's certainly, I don't think it's committing us to doing the work if there's no other funding. That's not my intention, certainly.
Any members of committee on the motion? Councillor Jim Harris, no, maybe?
Maybe just with wording, could it be to assist with their plans? I'm trying to remember it all in my head, Deputy Mayor Ward, but would that be changing it at all? And again, it's all in my head, so I can't see it to read it, but that came to mind when I heard Councillor Morales.
Yes, and in fact, that would be, I just said to work with, and it could be to assist with their plans, sure.
Okay,
that's what I'm thinking, yeah. Okay. Any members of committee have any questions? I had some questions on the presentation in general, so I'm just going to jump in. If any members of committee have a question on the actual motion, Mr. Bell, so we own Midhurst. Deputy Mayor Ward, thank you for clarifying. We own Midhurst. We own the stands. So that's kind of a city asset. Down the line, is there any possibility, Mr. Bell, and this might be a Ms. McAlpin question as well, is there any opportunity to put them into the plans rec center for the southeast end of the city? I know that obviously that's been pushed back a couple of years, but and I know that we've started the process for land, but basically, is there enough space? Not so much the cost of the question, but is there enough space to do the rec center, library hub that we're envisioning, doing the right size for rinks, pools, and also throwing a baseball diamond, or is that off the table for that?
I'll let Rob provide the details, but no would be the short answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, to Councillor Morales's question. Yes, thanks, Don. Yeah, the spacing that we presently have identified in the South Community Centers would not be suited for this type of stadium. And the one thing that I want to make a comment on is the stadium is, if you haven't been out there, please let me know and I'll get you out there this summer, because it is a great opportunity to be out and see a great baseball game. So we can work with them to see that. But the location and the size of the stadium, and noting that it's night games, there's very bright lights. If you've ever driven by Highway 26 when it's open, it's daytime out there. So you have to be very cautious of the resident impact. So putting it in a residential area is something you must be very aware of when we move forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. I had a question to Mr. Mills and Mr. Marley. Have you tried contacting MPP Doug Downey, Attorney General Doug Downey? Because this, again, grants, there's lots of money out there, but I'm also thinking, just because of the way the economy is being affected, if there's help through Queen's Park, specifically through maybe not you as an individual, but the Baycats location, which would be MPP Downey. I'm just wondering if you've initiated that conversation, or if just us municipally is your first point of contact.
You're our first point. Well, I've been involved with getting grants before, so I understand totally where you're coming from. But because it's a Barrie owned building, Barrie property, I didn't think that we were allowed to do that. We weren't given any kind of direction on that at the start of this presentation. But if it's out there, yes, we can certainly contact all the authorities and see if there's something that fits for us in regards to the tourism, or regards to what we supply. We basically supply an avenue for the senior people in Barrie to have something to do in the summertime. Same as the Colts do with the younger people in the wintertime. It's pretty simple.
No, I appreciate it. And again, you guys, your business model, your community engagement, just you as individuals, your integrity, like very supportive. I know some other members of council shared it, but I grew up playing baseball. And I was a baseball catcher in Barrie Minor. I umpired for nine years as well. So I'm very supportive of the sport. And for one summer, 2007, I actually did a bit of Rogers TV support for Baycats and other events, which actually leads to my next question. While I'm supportive of Barrie Baycats in general, the ask is, I don't know if I'm supportive of the ask. So it's the broadcasting center and it's the mezzanine. So this is actually a question. What is so critical that has changed that would require you guys to do this capital investment instead of just using the Rogers trucks? They've got full broadcast capabilities. They're mobile. I'm just wondering if I'm missing something there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sore spot, but I guess it doesn't matter. It's out there. Yes, Rogers showed up and broadcast the games, and we worked with them and give them the space, and they took media space from us as well, that we had to shuffle CTV people away. And then Rogers changed their policy. They wanted to charge us a couple $1,000 a game.
No, it was 10,000, Paul, for the.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of walked away from them at that stage.
Okay, so you've lost Rogers as a partner, is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, basically.
Well, basically, we cannot afford them. When they were doing it as a community service, it was a great fit for the two of us. But when they wanted the Baycats to pay for the for the whole load. We don't make that kind of money.
Yeah, this I appreciate it. This sounds more and more like a provincial question right now at this point. And I guess finally, I appreciate the motion, Deputy Mayor Ward. I'm stuck now. I was gonna say I'm not supported at this time just because of COVID. Like, there's no way I can make a capital investment on something that has to do with people capacity when we don't even know how quickly we're going to return to normal, what new normal is, what those numbers are. Like, it just makes it's very it would be very problematic for me. And then obviously the question about the broadcasting capital investment would have just been keep using the trucks. But now that I know more information, that one makes me a little bit hesitant. So initially I was just going to say, right now it's not the time, let's reassess after COVID. But I still stand by that for the mezzanine part. But in terms of broadcasting, you know, especially this crucial season, your success really comes down to how you're able to get those games, at least virtually, out there. So I guess I'll end my comments there and see if any other members of committee have any other questions or comments. Ms. Cook, go ahead.
There, I'll mute myself. Maybe just switching the wording around Deputy Mayor Ward's motion to say something along the lines that staff assist with planning, that staff assist with planning and investigating opportunities for funding. To like basically just kind of switch the wording around to put the end of Deputy Mayor Ward's sentence at the beginning. So would say that staff assist in investigating opportunities with the Barrie Bay Cats to pursue federal, provincial, municipal funding for the expansion of their press box and mezzanine.
Deputy Mayor Ward.
Sure. Should we redirect them to work with them as well on the plans for it? Because I worry that because we own the stadium, we should be involved in the planning too.
Okay, so we would just at the beginning of the sentence, we would say that staff be directed to assist and investigate with the Barrie Bay Cats oh gosh, now I've lost my train. Sorry about that. That staff be directed to assist and investigate funding opportunities for the expansion of the Barrie Bay Cats press box and mezzanine.
Sure, and it's understood that we're helping them with the planning of those too.
Yes.
And what if we should say report back? Do you think that's necessary?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Report back to
Finance and Corporate Services.
Finance and Corporate Services Committee. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that way I know your intention isn't that, Deputy Mayor, but that way it's not a blank check support. Okay, so by keeping the mezzanine in there, again, that was just my personal, I wasn't speaking for committee, even though I'm not supporting mezzanine whatsoever. If we do a grant and it's covered 80-20, 100%, 70-30, you know, that might change the reality. And by the time we get the grant, maybe the vaccination rollout is different and we can get back to normal. So maybe that might change. So if it doesn't commit us to supporting mezzanine, I think we can keep it in the motion. Because again, I would be supportive of broadcast capabilities, but not mezzanine if the city of Barrie were to be covering 100%. Like there's no way unless we get really good grants. Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, just a question actually to one of the presenters, because I've got some concerns about the mezzanine piece of it myself, because I look at that as basically we're building a beer garden for them. It appears the way it's presented anyway. And I'm just kind of curious from either of the presenters why you would be looking at doing a flat platform mezzanine opposed to increasing the number of stands that you've got down the two baselines.
Go ahead.
Paul?
The mezzanine allows you to have a bit of a gathering area. If your caterer wants to serve beer up there, that's fine. We don't have the beer guy out there, but the changes to the railings and the changes in the mezzanine, change to existing railings out there, which would be part of the mezzanine, and to build a mezzanine behind the first base, to just give more standing room for an area of meetings. as well. So it's you might like the way we're looking at it is there hasn't been anything done for 20 years to make the park different and for our fans. And also we still think the city would gain from it. If you want to hold an event out there, you'll be able to oversee the field. If that helps you.
I'll leave it at that. I'm not so sure that a flat mezzanine is necessarily the best sight lines to watch a ball game when everybody's on the same level. But again, I'm not running the Baycats, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other members of committee questions on the motion as reworded?
I'm sorry, Councillor, can you just have someone just read that again, please? So
Ms. Cook, can we just clarify?
Okay. Now that I have time to scribble it properly here, that staff be directed to assist with the planning investigation for funding opportunities for the expansion of the Barrie Baycats press box and the mezzanine, and report back to Finance and Corporate Services Committee.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Ward, would you consider splitting them? Mezzanine and broadcasting? I don't know. It's just I'm going.
First of all, I actually think the mezzanine's a great thing. I actually see it. It's actually quite common, I think, in minor sports fields because they can sell it to the local service club. They say have a night out, Tuesday night with the Baycats or a law office or a law firm or a manufacturing plant. They can sell those as a package, saying, "Yeah, come out and enjoy a night with your colleagues out at the Baycats game." I think it actually has great potential. I've actually seen it in many things, and in fact, you actually see it now in rock concerts too, where they sell an extra experience that you can hang around with your friends up by the stage, and it's sort of sold separately. So I think it's actually a great marketing opportunity for the Baycats. They obviously see it as one too.
But okay, just Deputy Mayor Ward, I just want to speak. I guess a kind of a common question to you. I'm just really struggling with investing 6 figures plus in a people gathering space during a year. I don't even know what this is now. A timeline where we don't know when we can people gather again. It seems not short-sighted. It seems blind. Like I can see the public going like, are you kidding me? Like everyone's struggling. We're investing in capital for people gathering. I know this isn't going to last forever. So I'm not saying no forever. I'm just saying, let's move forward with helping them for grants for broadcasting to ensure the survival of a 101-year plus great organization, but investing in a mezzanine / beer garden / community group partnerships, it's very difficult. And I know I said the comments earlier, but even if it came back 80-20, but it might be a different reality in 2022. It's just, this is hard.
We're going to see if the funding opportunities are there. We don't, at this point, we don't even know if the Baycats will have a season. I mean, nobody in Ontario knows what's going to be happening. We don't know if there's going to be a OHL season this year, but I noticed in the budget, there's lots of things we're going to put money into the Saddle and Arena on I guess the expectation that eventually we're going to hold concerts and hockey games there again. So I don't see anything wrong with exploring down the road, seeing if there's funding out there for the mezzanine and the press box. It's going to return to normal at some point.
Okay. Any other members of the committee have any questions? Councillor Jim Harris.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Is it fair to ask a question again of our deputants?
For sure.
Okay, thank you. Just wondering, Mr. Marley, Mr. Mills, with the location on the first baseline, having been to Baycats games, that's where the beer gardens is, which is fine. So I'm just wondering, what if any thoughts around sponsorship with regard to having that built? I know, Deputy Mayor Ward, I understand Councillor Morales' or Chair Morales' concern about gathering, obviously, I agree. However, long term, we want to get back to normal life and including enjoying Baycats games. But the idea of the mezzanine might be a sponsorship opportunity. Who's your beer garden's beer supplier? I mean, what are the options for monetizing this, obviously in the future, like you said about renting out the top part to groups. So it could be a revenue generator. And I do like the idea of splitting these. So what have you done as far as seeing how to monetize this and sponsorship, this mezzanine and the potential it provides the Bay Cats for revenue?
First off, Councillor, we don't have concessions out there. So other than having a space, that's all that we would have.
Sorry, concessions, sorry, sir. And I could be wrong. I didn't go out last year. There was no season. Was that the beer gardens not out in the first baseline? Pardon me?
That's correct. But I'm saying with the mezzanine, the concessionaire would probably like that more than we would in terms of we don't have the concessions there. So it wouldn't mean renting out to a company to say, oh, come on in and for X amount of money you can have drink, beer garden, that type of thing. So we don't have control over that part of it. We don't have concessions.
The city has that.
Oh, so the beer gardens is the city's, is it?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good for the city, I guess. Okay, so and then the experience of renting the platform. Okay, so you haven't then thought of any ideas then because the platform, you don't see it as a potential revenue source, I guess.
I guess in time it could be, but that was not part of our thought right now, Councillor.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Councillor Jim Harris, might you consider moving some sort of amendment to Deputy Mayor Ward's thing that says that the city of Barrie work with the Barrie Baycats to explore sponsorship opportunities, just in general? Like, even if we were not asking for any money, just in general, we've done it at the at our for our hockey venture on Mapleview. So I'm thinking this is appropriate. I know the sponsorship policy had been worked on for years and it's revamped and everybody's ready to go. So since it is they are independent, but it is our facility, maybe we can kind of give them our manpower to help them out on that. Is that an amendment you'd consider? And maybe we can vote quickly on the amendment and go back to this, because I liked where you were going with that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So do I need wording or help? Obviously help from the clerk. Help as far as
through you, Councillor Morales, to Councillor Jim Harris, we could just add funding and sponsorship opportunities and make that part of the motion, and just add the words and just kind of keep the main motion as is. And then
I'm good with that.
because everything's coming back, like everything's coming back to Finance and Corporate Services Committee. So that's what I also wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, because and learning that we have the beer gardens maybe becomes City of Barrie makes money through the platform, I guess, is the other piece of it too. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Jim Harris. Any other questions? Councillor Thompson, you've been so quiet. Nope, not touching it. Okay. Okay, so I guess I'll give my final comments on this. Again, I'm struggling with this one. I've got a love of baseball. I believe in the people running the organization and obviously how impactful they've been on the community. No issue with helping them write grants for communications. I think that the fallout of that partnership with Rogers is very unfortunate. And I think if there's anything anybody has a contact or anything our MPPs or MPs can do, this is the time to step up. And this is not what our local media should be pulling out and not supporting our local organizations. That aside, the mezzanine one and the capital, I guess there's no harm in applying for the money, but I think as Councillor Harvey kind of indicated earlier with a nod, let's make sure it comes back to Finance Committee. For me personally, not speaking for him, I don't want it to be a kind of a commitment that slowly kind of gets away from us. And we'll hopefully, I'm cheerleading for this, that we're at a time when it comes back to us, maybe with a grant ready to go and a percentage commitment from us. We're at a time where this makes sense, where people gathering is logical, not what are they thinking. So I'll be cautiously supportive of the motion personally. And unless there are any other questions or comments, we can I'll take a vote on it. So seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. In support. Okay, I'm also in support. That passes unanimously by members of committee. Thank you to Mr. Mills and Mr. Marley for the presentation. And again, thank you for your commitment. Again, 101 years, and you're now facing a pandemic that is affecting businesses that are in the business of people gathering. So this is this is a very tough time, and hopefully there will be better times ahead. So thank you for coming out.
Can I just have one last question?
Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, who do we deal with, or who should our contact be then in staff?
Miss Cook, who should the appropriate contact be? Or Miss McAlpin, if you can help.
I'll let Miss McAlpine jump in, but I would assume it would be Mr. Bell.
Miss,
That is correct.
We know him.
there you go.
Great guy.
He's amazing, so I'm sure he'll be a great person for you to work with.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mills, Mr. Marley.
Yep.
If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're free to, but if you want your evening back, you are free to go. We're not going to judge you.
Okay,
Okay.
I just got to somehow get out of here. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Back to the rest of our meeting. If you give me 1 second, members of committee, just pulling my stuff on my presentation here. We have one presentation. Presentations concerning Barrie Transit's vision and transit on demand. I'd like to call upon Jason Zimmerman, Supervisor of Transit Operations and Infrastructure, to provide the presentation, and Brent Forsyth, Director of Transit and Parking Strategy, is also available for the presentation. Go ahead.
Jason, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I blacked out there for a second, so I'll just set up the presentation and we'll go from there.
Perfect. We can see the presentation.
Is it 2 slides or 1? Do you see?
We see one slide with the sides tucked to the left corner. So it's not in full screen, but it's big enough. There we go. Yeah, that's in full screen.
All right. Thanks for your just patience with me there. Hello, committee members. My name is Jason Zimmerman. I'm the city's Supervisor of Transit Operations and Infrastructure. I'm just going to give you a short presentation on the 2 reports on the agenda this evening. As it relates to the first report, I'll be giving an overview of the planning principles for Barrie's Transit Vision project, including delegated authority for minor cost-neutral changes. To the second report, you will hear more details on the city's new transit on-demand service model. The Transit Vision project involves building a new service network plan that will align with the opening of the new Allendale Mobility Hub in 2022. The project will have 3 main deliverables. There will be the building of the new transit network design, then ensuring that this design has future phasing that will align with the city's growth. For example, looking at how the design will accommodate planned intensification corridors and meet with the travel needs of the residents in the Salem and Hewitt areas. And finally, it will include a detailed bus stop infrastructure plan that will build upon the multi-year phased funding by ISIP and support future service improvements. To ensure that we align with the opening of the new Allendale Hub, we will follow this project timeline. Here we are outlining the steps that will be involved in the Vision project. We are starting by establishing our principles, and then we will be conducting public consultation in Q1. This timeline will act as our guideline and will have several project milestones. It will involve retaining a consultant to do a peer review of the network design and how it will meet with transit planning best practices. The end result will be a new network that will come back to council for approval and be finalized before the end of 2021. This will provide ample time to build a strong communications and transitions plan to ensure the public are well informed. What are the transit principles? Mainly, they represent the guiding concepts of what are the best practices in planning towards building an efficient and long-lasting transit network design. If you were to see them in a structure, you would have the foundation, which recognizes that a useful transit service must think broadly about the rider's demands for the service and for those demands, and make sure that those demands are accommodated. We would have the pillars. The pillars would speak to the transit network design being quick, frequent, and reliable. And we would have the service promises. These promises would refer to the longevity, financial feasibility, and how the rider would experience the design. These principles will help build the framework for the scoring to help planning staff best select the preferred network option. Delegated authority. Like most transit agencies and how it has historically been done in Barrie, minor cost-neutral service adjustments have been made by staff, and council has been notified via a memo of the upcoming details well ahead of implementation. Having this authority provides greater flexibility for the service to adapt to growth. It would provide enhanced efficiency, and it would mainly improve the service responsiveness by expediting the process. A good example of how this would work would be when Metrolinx adjusts their GO train departure times and with little advance notice given to the city. The ability to make the required minor bus route schedule adjustments will allow for a responsive service to better connect to the new GO train departure times and ensure the city's GO train users can still connect and commute when they need to. As we work towards implementing the new network service plan, it will be important to have this authority to improve responsiveness and to make minor service adjustments that may be required. This process would remain the same, where a detailed memo will be provided ahead of time, but now staff are requesting a formal approval from council to provide delegated authority to perform these types of service adjustments in a timely manner. I get to the fun part, transit on demand. As part of the 2020 business plan, council approved a one-year pilot for transit on demand to be funded by provincial gas tax. Tonight, we're reporting on the exciting results of this service model. Transit on demand is a relatively new transit service model for transit agencies. Many municipalities see the benefits and are undertaking feasibility studies or are already soon launching their own pilots. What exactly is transit on demand? Well, mainly it's defined as a transit service that does not have a fixed route or a fixed schedule. Basically, the service operates within a predefined zone, shown here in the city's current transit on demand zone, which has several popular travel destinations and has been built to cover what Route 11 covers today. How does it work? Well, let's meet Tim here. Tim books a trip through the free smartphone application or over the phone through one of our booking agents up to the Allendale Rec Center. Tim then gets on the bus. After that Tim has boarded the bus, then Jill books a similar trip. The software will then recognize that it can pool these two trips together. The software automatically adjusts the route to swing by Park Place and pick up Jill. Now both Tim and Jill receive a great transit trip that is based on their schedule and not on a fixed bus schedule. What is so different about this service and why use it? The transit on demand service model is a cost-effective transit model for transit agencies to provide service during low demand times and into low demand areas of a city. Mainly, transit on demand provides lower waiting times and quicker trips. It provides more transit coverage than a low-performing conventional fixed transit route can, as shown with our current service zone covering a larger area. This service does have one primary limitation. Too many trip requests and the level of service to the rider quickly degrades. It only achieves great results in low transit demand times and areas. How has transit on demand service performed since August, you may ask? Prior to launch, we developed some very high KPIs for this service to see if it could replace a low ridership conventional bus route. The service performance to date has shown for having wait times of under 15 minutes, we are seeing an average of less than 6 minutes. The total travel trip times are under 10 minutes. On-time performance is over 95% on time, and our rider rating is over 4.6 out of 5. The service had some high expectations to meet, and it exceeded them. A little history on Route 11. Route 11 was launched in 2016 as a route to connect the Lockhart residents and Saunders employment areas to directly get them to Park Place and the rest, and to join them into the rest of the transit network. The route was extended in 2018 from Park Place north to the Allendale Rec Center and to the high school to help encourage additional ridership. It had limited success. Overall, the performance of this route has been poor, and it has never reached our minimum target of 8 to 10 boardings per hour. We are planning to replace the traditional fixed route service model on Route 11 with a transit on demand service model. The service will operate the same hours as Route 11, and as seen on the map, we will be able to service additional areas of the city, like the new emergency campus and the en route on Fairview Road, or new additional employment areas on Truman Road or on Saunders Road, like we have added up on Truman Road to service the Christmas cheer. The flexibility of this service model will also allow us to extend this service to the Hewitts area as it begins to be built out. Tonight, we are seeking approval from committee to make this adjustment. Approval, once approved, it will be followed by an in-depth communications plan to well inform the users that will be impacted. Then the conventional Route 11 will be discontinued by February the 13th. Staff would then continue to monitor the transit on demand service to ensure Route 11's transit users' travel needs continue to be accommodated. As we look to the future, transit on demand is an excellent addition to how we better connect our city. There are many opportunities with this service model. Some additional applications of transit on demand that are currently being explored are integrating this service model with the specialized transit service to drive even more efficiencies. This could involve enabling the specialized transit buses that are already on the road and around the city to also pick up conventional transit riders in the service gap areas. A good example of this would be, we could put a transit on demand bus stop on Amelia Street, where it is really hard to accommodate this area with a conventional bus route. A specialized transit bus could easily accommodate the travel needs of that bus stop and bring those transit users to the nearest transit hub. Another added benefit to our specialized transit clients is that they would then be able to book their trips online, which is currently only able to be done over the phone. Another option could be to equip the buses to perform the transit on demand service for late night and early morning service to accommodate the low travel demands at those times in a much more efficient way than conventional bus routes can. And lastly, new development areas like Salem and the Hewitts could also be provided with an early adoption of the transit on demand when it is critical to provide service before alternative long travel habits are formed, like buying a second car. Mainly, there are many great opportunities for the city to grow this service. Replacing Route 11 is the first step as we continue to work towards our end goal of getting the buses where they need to be and when they need to be there in the most efficient way. Thank you for your time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman, for the presentation. Awesome point about getting in there before habits are formed in growth areas. That's a very important planning point. Any members of the committee have any questions or comments? Councillor Harvey and Deputy Mayor Ward after.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Yeah, obviously with the on-demand perspective, obviously it seems to be working extremely well, especially when you've only got a few people that will be in the bus at any one time. Are we still using full-size buses to accommodate this?
To you, Councillor Harvey and committee members, currently right now, originally we had purchased additional small cutaway buses, which are like a shuttle style bus to perform this service. But right now, because of COVID and social distancing and because all our buses are not on the road, we're using a full-size bus for transit on demand right now.
Just a follow-up question. What would be the long-term piece on this, because I kind of look at a place like Quebec City, for instance, where they've got, they look like a normal transit bus. It's just they're literally chopped about a third of the size and hold about 10 to 12 people. And obviously outside of COVID times, that seems like it might be the ideal way to go, because obviously it's a heck of a lot cheaper to run a smaller vehicle than it is a full-size transit bus. What's the long-term perspective on this? Because I know actually including in this year's budget too is an ask for a few more buses to add to the complement, and also to replace a few of the older aging ones.
Did you want to speak to that, Brent? Or
Sure. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I can speak to that. Councilor Harvey, yeah, I guess to your first question, our long-term plan would be to run this with specialized buses. Unfortunately, which are our kind of smaller cutaway, which do accommodate up to 10 passengers when social distancing is no longer an issue. And that's initially what our plan would be for this. Obviously with the restrictions, that's why we're running it with a full-size bus at this point. But moving forward, our plan would be to run it with smaller buses, and in this case, specialized buses. But we could look at other fleet in the future as well that could accommodate this. And then I guess kind of to your second point, we are looking at some growth buses as part of the 2021 capital plan, which would actually, based on the procurement, the manufacturing, delivery of the buses, they usually take about a year. So it's really to kind of align with the growth of the city for 2022. And that's what the buses would be kind of intended for.
Okay. And just one last question, because obviously this seems like it's working extremely well. What other routes within the city have you identified at this point as being possible expansion for the on-demand?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey, and to committee members. At this time, we haven't identified any firm areas. As we're working towards the Transit Vision project, that will be a consideration as we work towards building that network plan. And that network plan may involve transit on demand as part of it.
Great, thank you. That's my questions.
Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. I have a question of clarification, first of all. Just so I understand, so if this, I think you call him Tim, gets on the bus and takes it to the Allendale, he can use a transfer to get onto our regular service after that?
Yes, that's correct.
And the reverse is true. If somebody from the north end is coming down, they can go to the Allendale and then get a transfer onto this bus to, let's say, go to Park Place. That's correct? And would they have to call in advance to book it, or would they just get on the bus when it's at Allendale, or how does that work?
They would do their own trip planning. So they would know that they would be wanting to take the transit on demand service to extend their travel trip. So they would book that ahead of time through the smartphone application, or they could call one of our booking agents and set that up.
Okay, and the I think it was in the budget. I don't have the sheet in front of me. I think it might have been the budget, the document asking for this, but it talked about what is the cost recovery of transit on demand, the ridership, the paying customer. What percentage of the cost are they paying? Are they covering? Expected to cover?
I always send the money questions to Brent.
Okay, thanks for the question, Councilor Ward. We're really looking at the service as like an extension of our transit service, and we're not trying to look at necessarily the on-demand necessarily separate to it, but actually complementing the rest of our service to still provide that service to those low demand areas or low demand times of the day and that type of thing. It would probably be a little difficult to isolate the true costs of just kind of the one bus and the one service. But to your point, it would definitely be, when you look at, kind of the ridership on transit on demand, for example, versus that one slide that Jason had up, the ridership on Route 100, for example. Obviously, the utilization of those routes would make it a far more cost recovery route. But really, the transit on demand is to kind of fill the gaps in service where we still need to provide in the city, where there is that low demand.
is there a lower cost? I mean, I'm not sure than running a regular bus. Is it? And why? Because there's only one bus running, or is it? Yeah. So is it lower?
So the benefit, the true benefit here when we're looking at it compared to Route 11 is it's really the same cost as Route 11 because we're really paying the same kind of service hours to our contractor because it is running the same hours. But what it allows, it allows greater flexibility and it allows us to expand some of those zones. So now we're hitting some additional zones, some of those employment lands that we weren't able to necessarily hit with a conventional route. And then it also gives us the flexibility to expand that a bit further. So, you know, in this situation here, as you know, some of the lands in Hewitt's open, we may be able to expand this service slightly or gradually with that as we expand our service to provide them service, as Jason kind of mentioned from day one of movement.
Okay. Just one other question. It's about the delegated authority. I know there's a staff report coming up, but I'm also getting my question answered now. Just one suggestion is I know you say you'll issue a report to council when these changes are made, but I really would encourage staff to contact the ward councillor before you make the changes. I think it's really important because they're the ones that are going to get the call. Can't imagine how angry people get when their bus stop is moved. I don't understand it, but they really do. And I think it's really important that the councillor at least know that this is coming so they can be prepared to say, what? Your transit stop was moved? I didn't know that. And I think it's really important that you include them in on the conversation, say a transit time or any changes to the transit system that affects their ward. I think it's a good idea to give them a heads up on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ward. That's a great point. And to give dues where dues are deserved, Mr. Forsyth has done that. This specific area that we're talking about, specifically Route 11, is both Ward 9 and Ward 8, and he's kept me notified and given me months and months of heads up. So maybe it wasn't done in the past, but it's definitely at least being done with my experience. So that's a good thing. Any other members of the committee have any questions? Mayor Lehman, go ahead.
Just one on transit and demand. Jason, thank you for the presentation and great performance. What was the total ridership during the pilot?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and to committee members. Right now, our ridership is fluctuating. On average, we were seeing about 80 to 90 riders per week on the service, which sounds low, but it's also operating right now over top of Route 11. So it's been sharing the riders between Route 11, and it has increased. From the beginning, I think we were starting at like 25 or 30 riders per week, and then it got up to about 90, even got up to 130 riders one week. And we were seeing a lot of ridership coming from the high school, which was really nice to see. But now with the restrictions, it's dipped back down to about 30, 40 a week.
Well, I know our overall system ridership is so far down anyway, it's hard to extrapolate anything from those numbers. In fact, I think that's pretty good because, you know, if we assume we're operating somewhere around 25% of normal ridership, that you're talking about more like 500 a week, which is in a good week, which is very good. My other question was on the vision that you started with. And I'll ask this question now, like Barrie did, instead of waiting for the staff report, because it's relevant to both. Is staff's intention with the development of the transit vision to wait any aspect of the design or construction of the mobility hub while this work is being done? Or is the mobility hub proceeding now in terms of the building project, and then the vision is really being used to shape the service that will be brought to that building once the building is complete?
Yes, Mayor Lehman and committee members, that is exactly correct. That project is moving on its own timeline, and this project, it will be moving in line with it. So the two, we're building them to come together, and everything's going to go perfectly.
Well, we learned in 2013 that isn't usually the case, but we also learned that after a few years, it really rocks and rolls once you improve service for people. So we'll trust that that will happen again. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Councillor Jim Harris, then Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. This might be a bit granular, but given the Route 11 and the area in question, and I know Mr. Forsyth, we've had some conversations about some of these areas. So I'm just curious, with the challenges that we've had and the work that's been done with some of the employers in the area around bus service, will this assist in that regard, or be a problem, or will it be neutral? If you can answer that question, because again, to Deputy Mayor Ward's point about changing bus services, we've had some discussions about bus service in this area from employers on behalf of their employees. So thank you.
Yeah, to you, or did you want that, Brent?
Sure. Yeah, I can take that. Thanks for the question, Councillor Harris. Yeah, I guess my feeling is that it would definitely improve service in that area. Some of the the benefit of the other councillors and committee members, some of the information we've received from some of the industry down there is just that there's a few things. One, there's transit service is only servicing certain parts of that kind of area, and as you can see from the map, we've kind of expanded that to get the transit on demand closer to some of those areas, and there's been concern about safety and walking the streets and things like that to the closest bus stop. So from that standpoint, I would definitely say it would be an improved level of service. I do also think that the flexibility of being able to book your ride at the completion of your shift or the beginning of your shift, and allows them that they'll have the service right away, and they don't necessarily have to wait the 45 minutes for the next bus and those types of things. And the benefit of this service too, and I don't think we really mentioned it, is you're actually able to book rides in advance, almost like a subscription service. So if you're an employee who works 5 days a week down there, and you have the same shift or whatever, you can actually book those in advance, and then you have your kind of guaranteed ride to and from work.
That's awesome. Thank you. Just for folks, Mr. Forsyth and his team has been really great to work with employers down there. So I wanted to note that it's an opportunity to do that. But also, just curious, as far as communication, will employers be advised of this so they can then advise their employees of this opportunity to get to work with transit?
Councillor Harris and committee members, yes, we actually have had quite a few calls directly with employers in the existing transit on-demand zone, and they have then gone and talked to their staff and encouraged them to try it, and we've gotten some great reviews from their staff who really enjoy it. Yeah, so we definitely would do that however we can, and we'd make every effort to do so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jim Harris. Councillor Thompson, you messaged me and said you already had your questions answered. I'm going to jump in here and have a couple questions. Mr. Forsyth, I love this transit model. It's essentially getting rid of inefficiencies within mass transportation and using data. And I like Mr. Zimmerman's point where he said this only works really well until you've reached a certain level of capacity, then it works really bad. Because I say that because it's not meant to replace mass transit, it's meant to fill a gap. So awesome. Could we deploy smaller, and we're not talking BACTS vans, we're talking just standard SUVs that we could really use to fill in the gaps. I already know the transit department, you guys got direction from a couple motions last year about moving towards EVs in all forms. And I guess I'm kind of being cheeky, but at the same time not. Do we see a world where a Mustang Mach-E comes and somebody, requests transit on demand and picks them up, both because of the size, the capacity, and of course the electrification? And obviously, you need to do what you need to do with vendors, but the Mustang thing I just had to say in there. But is this a model we're looking at, or we're not quite at the point where we're buying SUVs for the purpose of this model?
I could speak to that a little bit, and Brent, if you want to add anything. Mainly, the reason that we look for buses that have a larger capacity is it's because it's built to be more sustainable than your existing Uber type services that are out there. We want to be able to accommodate more people on the same vehicle, so having a smaller vehicle like a SUV or a van or something like that. What we've seen from other transit agencies that have tried that, they have had to quite quickly upgrade to either a shuttle style bus or even a full size bus like they did in Kingston. So yeah, it's most likely we would stay with something in a shuttle style or larger. That would be my first thought.
Yeah, and I would just add one other thing, sorry, Councilor Morales, is that we are required under AOD legislation to be able to provide service that accommodates individuals with devices and whatnot as well. So we would just have to keep that in mind. It doesn't necessarily restrict us from getting an EV Mustang, but it is a consideration in terms of our total fleet makeup.
Perfect. So flexibility, Mr. Zimmerman, and adaptation up and down. Actually, this leads to my other question really well. Do we see this model being adapted to provide that gap between, I forget what the planning term, Marilyn, you might be able to help me out, that the final mile or the final 2 miles or whatever. In the GTA, it's called the gap between a GO station and a person's kind of home, at least to address Allendale area, Ward 9 area, Ward 10 area, where, Mr. Zimmerman, you're talking about consumer behavior. Somebody moves into a back-to-back town and goes, we need a car, but maybe we can make do without it. And all of a sudden, the city steps up and helps with that gap, because that would be a big home run. And I'm just wondering if we're close to that point, or we have to do this first and then we'll see.
Councilor Morales and committee members, that's exactly what we want to achieve, is that first mile, last mile, I think is what you're referring to. Mm-hmm. And there's a number of transit agencies that actually call transit on demand that is the first mile, last mile, or demand response. It's got a few other names out there. But, a good example of that would be the new developments in the Hewitts area. Traditionally, for a conventional service, we would have to wait till that entire area is built out and there's connecting roads for us to run a conventional bus routes through there. Whereas now we could put in a few transit on demand stops, go in there and bring those people up to the GO train or wherever they may be going.
Okay, perfect. And then again, follow-up question, just because your responses are so good. Is there an opportunity where to fill in the gaps? Let's say we don't want to or can't use one of our buses to do the model that you're proposing. Could we partner with industry? And what I mean by that is any of the taxi companies, I'm not going to say a specific name, or one of the vans that tends to shuttle people to airports, things of that. Like I know there's essentially capital. By capital, I mean equipment out there. I don't know if it's at capacity or below capacity, but is there an opportunity for us to find efficiency in filling gaps where needed, or that's something that you guys are more than think that we're more than capable with filling with our own buses and our own capital?
Well, Councilor Morales and committee members, to answer your question, filling in the gaps is basically, I mean, it would be hard to do with a partnership between some other private agency because there's a number of liabilities and other things that are involved with doing that we may not want to get into. I think mainly that's why we talked about the specialized transit service. As we build new areas or existing Barrie, the specialized transit service are all about the city every day already. And a lot of times they're sitting waiting for their next call, and they're sitting for sometimes up to an hour. These buses have the capacity, they have the ability to service those gaps. A good example, and that's why I added it to the presentation, is Amelia Street. I'm sure you've all heard, or some of you have heard of the travel constraints to the residents up on Amelia Street. It's very hard for us to get a conventional bus service in there because of the road network. So one thing that we could do is we could add a transit on demand bus stop in there, and then specialized buses that are up and in the area could easily pop in there, pick up somebody and bring them to the terminal or wherever they may be going.
Okay, perfect. I didn't even think about the insurance liabilities and other intricacies. Appreciate the questions. Okay, so any other questions or comments from members of committee on this? Seeing none, let me just get back here. So give me 1 second. So the report to committee, it's 6.2 route service model, and 6.3 is transit planning principles. Since they're related to the presentation, procedure bylaw allows us to bump it up. Are there any members of committee that have any objections to bumping it up, just so we can ensure Mayor Lehman can be present, as well for staff members not to have to wait unnecessarily. Seeing no objections, it's bumped up. So let me just get to the point in the agenda. That's 6.2, Route 11 service model. That the Route 11 conventional service model be discontinued and replaced with the transit on demand service model, and as identified in the report to the Finance and Corporate Services Committee dated January 12th, 2021 regarding Route 11 service model. Can I have somebody put that on the floor as read? Mayor Lehman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ward. Any questions or comments? None? All those in favor, please indicate. I am in favor as well. That passes. Perfect. So now we've got 6.3, transit planning principles. Number 1, that the transit planning principles framework associated with the Barrie's Transit Vision Project and as identified in the report to the Finance Corporate Services Committee dated January 12th, 2021 regarding transit planning principles be endorsed. And 2, that the Director of Transit and Parking Strategy and the Executive Director of Access Barrie be delegated authority to implement minor cost neutral transit routing and or schedule changes when required. And can I have somebody put that on the floor as read? Councillor Gary Harvey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Ward. Any questions or comments from members? Mayor Lehman, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think it was Deputy Mayor Ward made the very good comment around the adjustments in terms of a bus stop being moved and anything under delegated authority being reported to council, the ward councillor. Having been through this experience with you guys on more than one occasion in different locations across the city over the years, one of the things we often talked about was how do we reach people to advise them, because I know, there's the good old flyer on the bus on the back of the driver's compartment wall. There is the piece of paper that gets taped with some plastic over it to the stop and inevitably ends up shredded by the elements, but we do the best we can. Have we gotten any further along in terms of trying to notify our customers and provide information? It's not the sort of thing with our level of ridership in the city where it makes sense to be trying to reach every single household, but it sure would be great to reach our customers directly a little better than just the old flyer on the route. And it'll probably save you guys in Service Barrie a ton of calls. You're nodding, so I'm guessing you've made some progress on this.
Yeah, maybe I can start, Mayor Lehman, and I'll pass it over to Jason. Actually, through our on-bus technology, that's one of the most successful things that we've discovered to date is we actually have the ability to put annunciator messaging with the stop. So as part of our AOD legislation, every time a bus approaches a stop, it does have to announce the stop for both visually and hearing impaired. So you actually hear that. So we actually have the ability, and actually right now we have a message on our bus on every stop that says, essential travel only, because of the times we're in. This one has been extremely successful in reaching a lot of people. Depending on the type of change, you could focus it on just hubs, you could have it on just a certain stop, you can have it on all stops, those types of things. So there's one really good way to do that. And again, you don't want a long-winded message like I'm giving you right now, but you want, something short, maybe send them to the website, things like that, obviously. And Jason, I'll let Jason maybe talk a little bit about my ride and some abilities to push some notifications through our transit app and whatnot, but that is a big win for us that we found in the recent years.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a long list of things now that we do, other than going door to door and writing it across their forehead, which I think is something that we're working towards. But our corporate communications department has really advanced our communications out to the public through their new technologies. With zone advertisements on Facebook feeds and things that pop up on people's phones when they're in the area, where we literally, when we launched Transit on Demand, we had that implemented so that it would pop up to people and let them know that this was there. So outside of we will always do the paper notifications at bus stops affected, on the buses, those types of things. But we'll integrate announcements, like Brent was saying, and then the My Ride notification. So our transit users that have signed up and create an account, which is very easy to do through MyRide, that they can sign up for general notifications or route specific notifications. And so what we can do now is push out notifications, and the people will be notified of the changes that may affect their specific route that they're interested in, or the system as a whole.
Okay, so this is so good to hear. And my primary concern was when we delegate this authority, just that we reinforce that need for communication. But you guys are way ahead of where I was even thinking. I did not know we were using geographically targeted Facebook ads. That's fantastic. And credit to Ms. James Reed. It makes sense that with transit and comms in the same Access Barrie division, you guys are working closely on that stuff. And that is really good news. So that certainly answers my concern, and I'm happy to support the motion, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I was going to say, Mr. Zimmerman, you laughed that we might write it on their foreheads door to door, but Mayor Lehman, myself, and then Councillor Broussard.
We went door to door.
We literally went door to door and did that fun stuff. And one more, Mr. Forsyth, if we don't want a long-winded answer for that notification, we need a third section in this motion that does not allow me anywhere near wherever this message is getting crafted. I digress. Any other members of the committee have any questions, comments? Nope. Okay. All those in favor, please indicate. I'm in support. None opposed. Okay, that passes unanimously. Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Forsyth, Ms. James Reed, thank you. And that is all for this section. So we're going to get back to the original agenda. There's no standing items or committee updates. We've got 4 referred updates. 4.1, first item was referred by motion 20-G-250 from General Committee dated December 14th, 2020. A memo from A.M. Langlois, Director of Human Resources dated December 14th, 2020 regarding the City of Barrie's becoming living wage employer. The Poverty Reduction Task Group of Simcoe County has requested an opportunity to speak concerning the memo regarding the living wage employer. Does the committee approve the request? Yes, seeing no opposition. Okay.
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Chair, and I'm really sorry to interrupt. We do have the next item is 4.2. It's related to the previous 3 items. I referred it here. I can deal with this item in probably 3 to 5 minutes if the committee is willing. If you don't want, and I apologize to those who are here to make the deputation, but because I referred the item and I have to drop off for 15 minutes, 20 minutes from 9 to 9:20, I'm wondering if we can deal with that very quickly.
Yep, absolutely. I should have caught on that going through the flow of the agenda. Any members of committee have any opposition to bumping up 4.2 before I call upon the task group? None? Okay. Second item was referred by motion 20-G-252 from General Committee December 14th. Memo from N. Calder, Project Manager, and McConnell, Transit Operations Planner dated December 14th for 2020 regarding Allendale Transit Mobility Hub. Do members of committee have any question regarding contents of the memo? Mayor Lehman.
Yeah, so my first question was dealt with by Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Forsyth, which is a relief because I was hoping that there wasn't a analytic and consultation process up front of the building project. My question for the authors of the memo is, are we on track for the project schedule that's been identified? And the other thing that's happened since I referred this in mid-December, then we got our budget binders that showed all of the construction funding being in 2021 for this project. The memo shows 2022, late 2022 completion. So my only question to staff is maybe you could just clarify, which project schedule are we on? What timeline are we on in terms of design and construction for the Allendale Mobility Hub?
Go ahead, Mr. Kaufman.
Through you, Councillor Morales as chair, to Mayor Lehman, and I'll let Director Hughes provide further details. The budget binder was produced much earlier in the year when we had anticipated receiving the ISIP funding approval earlier in the year, and therefore starting the project and being able to complete it. Given the timing when the ISIP funding was received, the project is extending into 2022. And I'll let Rick speak to the timing associated with the project and where we're at on the status.
Thank you, Chairman Morales, and through you to Mayor Lehman. The project is on schedule as to where we expected it to be. The RFP is out on the street right now for our design leads for the project. We do anticipate that the project will be completed by Q4 of 2022, as we've identified in the ISIP application form that was submitted. And as Ms. McAlpine noted, the budget amount that was submitted in the original plan was submitted, with the old timing prior to getting the approval for the ISIP.
Okay, my only other question then is, Mr. Hughes, do you see the project schedule in terms of late 2022 completion as aggressive? If it's not aggressive, is there any opportunity to move it more quickly?
Through Chairman Morales to Mayor Lehman, I think it is a reasonable budget at this point. Understanding it's very early in the project, we have to complete the detailed design. We need to get our project team on basically on site to do the work. We will push as quickly as we can to advance the schedule if that's at all possible. But I wouldn't want to commit now before we've got our team in place. There are a number of external factors that could impact the project. Work that Metrolinx is doing, ongoing work, design work that we're doing, and site work. So until we've got some of those pieces landed, I wouldn't want to, overpromise and undercommit. So for the time being, I think I would like to stick with Q4 of 2022 with a commitment that we will do our best to advance it if we can.
Okay, and I see in the memo there's regular reporting to council, so we'll have a good sense as you bring on the team. I have some confidence, given the experience on the emergency services campus, that IPD is our best chance of delivering on time and on budget. And it's nice to see that the confidence learned through that project will be applied to this one. If I have a closing comment, and I hope I'm not offside at all with the word counselor, but I believe people were very excited about the rendering that they saw initially for this building, and which is in the transit vision, because it's it's a bit of a knockoff of the historic train station building. It's very similar. And I guess I would just encourage, as we move into the design process and its early feedback, that I think the community very much welcomes something that reflects the historic character of Allendale, both Allendale, the train station, and Allendale, the community. This is the first new building that can start rebuilding what was once the second downtown Main Street in Barrie, and was the downtown Main Street of Allendale. And the ward councillor had some great comments in the press in the last week or so around this project. And I just wanted to, at this point, ask about the schedule because I know there's a lot of interest in this, and there's ISIP money, which is a little dependent on that schedule. But secondly, just reflect before the design process moves forward that I've heard a lot of positive feedback about that. I don't know if Jim agrees, but I'm not saying it's got to look like every concept we've ever produced, but I hope the designers will take those ideas and incorporate them as best possible to build a building that reflects the historic character of Allendale. That's really all I wanted to say, Chair Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Councillor Jim Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales, and thank you, Mayor Lehman, for the comments. And I noting in the presentation, seeing the mock picture, which really showed the building looking very much like a connected design to the original Allendale station, which I think is, to your point, exactly what people were hoping. I know there was a consultation some time ago, and people liked the idea of that connecting to the heritage and the buildings and that are existing there. So that's wonderful. And certainly we do have a very engaged a group near the station. And so obviously with the project kickoff timeline on page 4, and noting that public consultation is winter 2021, it feels like we're in that period right now. So just kind of curious how soon that consultation may be expected for the excited residents of Allendale. And I was pleased that there's a lot of feedback on the potential positive place this development plays in rejuvenating and revitalizing Allendale. So there is lots of positive excitement. So thank you. So the consultation, I'm sure there's lots of excitement for that as well. So maybe, and Mr. Hughes, if you have a timeline, that would be wonderful. Thank you for the consultation.
Mr. Hughes?
Through you, Chairman Morales, to Councillor Harris, we envision our validation period to go through into kind of Q3 of this year. So certainly the consultation will have to occur over the summer months. Today's announcement and COVID will probably impact how we're going to do that. But at this point, frankly, I think we're getting pretty good at it. That is something that we're going to have to do fairly early, because we want to make sure that we haven't kind of fixed a design or gone into a direction that the community isn't interested in. I can speak specifically to the design elements and the idea of keeping it matching, within reason to the existing terminal. That's actually something that we focused on. I mean, I personally would like to see a mass timber structure, and we'll see what the designers come up with, but something along that line that is in keeping with the neighborhood and the existing heritage structures that are there.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. And we do know, Mayor Lehman and I, from our experience with the Ward 8 Town Hall, that Ward 8 folks will show up for a virtual town hall. So we look forward to a virtual consultation process. Thank you.
Yes, they will. Ms. James Reed?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, in case there's a little bit of confusion, that the transit vision consultation will begin shortly, within the next few weeks. And that's running separately to the work that Mr. Hughes was speaking of. So you'll see that information coming in the next couple of weeks in terms of our building Barrie. There'll be a platform, and they're planning some virtual town halls and some other things as part of that work.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ms. James Reed. So now that if there's no more questions on the memo, Mayor Lehman, are we just accepting the memo and moving on, or that was it? Okay, perfect.
I didn't have a motion given the answers from staff, so thanks, Councilor Morales.
Okay, perfect. So we will move back to, since we've already approved the deputation from the Poverty Reduction Task Group of Simcoe County, I will now call upon Jennifer Janip, excuse me if I mispronounced it, and Rosalind Junke and Ann Coleman from the Poverty Reduction Task Group of Simcoe County to provide their comments. Please note that in accordance with the city's procedural bylaw, you will have 5 minutes cumulatively to provide your comments. And let's make sure that we have their presentation material ready. The floor is yours.
Thank you. There. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Roz was going to kick us off. Are you there, Roz?
I am. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you on behalf of the Poverty Reduction Task Group for your time tonight. We appreciate your consideration of moving forward as a certified living wage employer, and we were first in to speak to you in the fall of 2019. We've had an interesting patch since then, everyone around the table, but delighted to be joined tonight by Jennifer Van Gennep, who is a member of our committee, as well as Ann Coleman, who is with the Ontario Living Wage Network. So I'm actually going to hand things over to them. We're mindful of the 5 minutes, just to be able to provide some additional context and information for your consideration tonight. Jen?
Thanks, Roz. Okay, so just to quickly review for you, because it's been about a year since we talked about this. Living wage is the hourly wage a worker needs to earn in order to cover their basic expenses and to participate in the community. And that is using very what's the word I'm looking for? Standardized methodology of how we calculate that number, but we use local costs for food, housing, transportation, childcare, etc. And that number is $18.01 for us right now in Simcoe County. So of course, the living wage is important because work should lift a person out of poverty. Poverty, of course, restricts people's options and holds people down from choosing their own path. And since we were able to present to you in November of 2019. Of course, now we have a COVID context to consider. And so we're able to see even more clearly how a low wage employment impacts people's well-being, their health, and our economy as well. You can see here some headlines. Ontario Food Bank usage is up. That includes among people who are working. And also, I think we were all taken aback last week to read the story of the 2 PSWs who work in long-term care full-time and have had to move into a shelter because they could no longer afford their rent while working full-time jobs. And that led to a COVID outbreak in the homeless shelter. So low-wage work is increasingly recognized as unsustainable, deeply damaging, and costly for society. And municipalities have a unique role in modeling and encouraging living wage employment. So these, of course, align with 2 of your own strategies identified as growing our economy. It strengthens the buying power of low-wage earners, and they are known for spending money locally and quickly. And it also fosters a safe and healthy city, especially when you consider the social determinants of health. So with that quick little review and backgrounder, we're going to turn to the Barrie Living Wage Memorandum prepared by staff, very thorough and very well done. And Anne Coleman is here with us from the Ontario Living Wage Network, and she's just going to address a few things that we saw there that we wanted to highlight for you as you consider becoming a certified living wage employer. Anne?
Thanks, Jen. So I'll just bring or give you a quick refresher on how our program works and kind of highlight a few areas for you. First of all, we have 3 levels of recognition within our program, and we've done this so to allow for a phased-in implementation of the living wage program for mostly for larger employers such as yourselves. So we have the first level is the supporter level, where all full-time employees are earning at least the living wage. So the City of Barrie already meets this basic standard. So you would be able to come in as a living wage employer with no implications to your current budget. The next level includes part-time workers, and I know that this is a bit of a concern. It looks like many of your part-time employees are already earning at least a living wage. It might look like some of the positions that are often more likely to be to employ students are some of the areas that are of concern. I will just bring or highlight the fact that we do have a trainee category of employee, which includes summer students that are hired through youth incentive programs, such as the Canada Summer Jobs Program. So that might be something to consider as you're thinking about becoming a living wage employer. And then finally, we have the champion level of recognition, which includes contracted workers that work for you on a regular basis. So I think that the City of Barrie has a real opportunity to be a leader, to show that, work is really important, a living wage is important. And so even though you're already doing many things that a living wage employer does, you're paying your full-time employees very well. I think there's a real opportunity here for you to show the benefits of paying a living wage to the rest of the community. And I know I'm running out of time here, but I just wanted to say thank you for considering this, and I am very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
You're on mute, Councillor Morales.
You're still on mute, Mr. Chair.
Any questions of members of committee? Councillor Jim Harris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. Just curious, I wonder if one of the barriers to signing on employers, and I'm sure you experienced this, is if employees that were never meant to and don't actually use this job that we provide to live. They live at home with their parents. Is that what I'm hearing and reading in this document, that we would be moving those type of positions, that, this is, income for school, for whatever else it is, but it's not for living. It's not for buying groceries and paying utilities and insurance. Would we be expected to move those type of jobs into a living wage category or rate?
Yes, so thank you, Councillor. Honestly, this is something that has been, I wouldn't say a barrier to a lot of our employers that have signed on, but a question that we've struggled with quite a bit. While we do sort of separate out and have that exemption for summer students, for part-time workers, we don't discriminate based on age in terms of our program. So if somebody is working throughout the year, regardless of the job that they're doing, and regardless of whether they're in school, we do, for the purposes of certification, expect that they would be paid a living wage. And the reason why we've come to this decision is because for us, we felt that we couldn't necessarily assume that because somebody's in school and they're working, it's to save for education, which is, obviously quite important, but, or to, have pocket money, but they could be trying to help support their family and help put food on the table. So we just felt that we couldn't make that decision specifically for that. At the same time, the reason why we have made the exemption for summer students is because we didn't want to deter employers from hiring students in the summer and providing youth employment in that way. And people tend to hire quite a few more students at that time. So we didn't want to take that away from those incentive programs.
Thanks, Dan. Am I allowed, can I add something? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. This also came up when we were originally talking about raising the minimum wage, and some really startling statistics came out when we were talking about bumping the minimum wage up to $15 an hour and the people who would get a raise. And it was more than half were over 24, over the age of 24, that are working in minimum wage jobs. And it's typically racialized and women. There's a gender and a racial piece to minimum wage jobs as well. So it's not, we pictured as students because we were students when we worked at the pizza place, but it's actually not necessarily that anymore.
Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm noting the position titles and bands that we have here, and yeah, that was the one Barrie. It seemed like there was this really obviously easy for City of Barrie as a full-time employer to make the supporter range, but now when you're asked to other positions, that aren't full-time positions and augmented positions, whatever, and whoever does them, I mean, just that makes a financial barrier between getting there. Anyway, so thank you for the answer to my question. You enlightened me, so I appreciate it.
Perfect. Any other members of committee have any other questions? Deputy Mayor Ward, and followed by Councillor Congo.
Thank you, Chairman Morales. So how do other municipalities get around? I mean, one of the big things in the staff report, as you've seen, is that if we bump up the wages of the part-time, because we are on a salary grid, which is with the union, it means everybody would get bumped up. So there's a ripple effect. If we bump up somebody's pay by $3 an hour, everybody above them is going to have to get a pay raise as well. And it'll suddenly become, well, from a council point of view, quite unaffordable if we have to budget that much more money. So how do other municipalities get around that?
Sure. I think, thank you for your question, Deputy Mayor. I think that I would say that each employer that we deal with has to take that into consideration, and it's certainly a bigger concern when it's a municipality or a business of this size. And to be quite honest, everyone has dealt with it differently. We've had some groups that have I think communication is really key. They've had a lot of conversations and they've decided that there was going to be some wage compression. And so having those communications with employees has been really important, and they've been able to get sort of the buy-in, so to speak, from their employees to be able to deal with that. That's not always going to be something that can happen in a union situation. And I understand that there's greater considerations when you have a municipality. I have to say, although I've been having a lot of conversations with different municipalities, I'm not necessarily the expert on how they've done this. And my best recommendation would be to reach out specifically to those municipalities and kind of have that conversation. I can speak a little bit to the city of Cambridge. When they decided to become a living wage employer, they created a committee. So council voted to become certified, and then the committee was formed to help sort of work through the implementation. And I do sit on that as sort of an expert on the way the program works. So the city staff themselves have had to sort of work through and figure out how that's going to best work within their organization. And they were able to increase wages, part-time wages over a few years by a few different increments. And I'm not exact. I think there was a little bit of wage compression, but they had sort of figured out by spreading it over a few budget years that they were able to take in that those wage increases.
Just ask a follow-up then. How long, for example, the city of Cambridge, which you're familiar with, how long did it take them from the time they decided to become a living wage employee to the time they were certified?
Yeah, so they are certified at the supporter level still, and I have to say they're probably not the best example. They have taken a little bit longer than we would like to see, but they're still working on those part-time wages. What they've done is they took 2 years to increase to the majority of part-timers to the living wage. They are still dealing with a few of those wages that you've been talking about, those student part-time or typically student part-time wages, I think lifeguards and program staff wages. They've kind of taken a different route, and they're looking at their contracts right now. And so they're implementing a living wage clause within their contracts, and then they are going to go back and finish up with those other part-time wages. So that's sort of how they've done it. They haven't done a direct route, so they'll probably go from the supporter level right to the champion level of recognition. Some of the other municipalities that I've been working with have taken, I think, 3 or 4 years to get to that. That's their implementation plan at this point, to get to the champion level of recognition. They're not nearly as far down the road as Cambridge is. We've just, the city of St. Catharines has just passed a motion through council to become a certified living wage employer. And I think they have, at this point, nothing's settled yet, but I think they have a 4 or 5 year projection to reach the champion level of recognition.
Thank you.
Councillor Congo.
Thank you, through you, Chair Morales. Sorry, Anna, I've lost your name on my screen, Ms. Coleman. I just wanted to clarify, and I was looking through some of the content on the website around the Ontario Living Wage Network. Glad to see we've got, I believe, at least 7 different not-for-profits and businesses in the Barrie area showcased there. And I was familiar with the city of Kingston moving to a supporter level. I'm not sure if they're still participating in it or not, but I maybe to further clarify, although we've asked questions about how long it's taken some of them and the trajectory of those municipalities, is there a particular point, recognizing you said Barrie would easily kind of already meet the supporter level, is there ideally a timeline if you're going to register to be certified that you expect or try to facilitate a municipality to be moving through those stages?
Yeah, we have tried to keep this a little bit gray because we recognize for municipalities, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. With a typical employer, we'd like to see them do this within maybe 2 or 3 years. I would say for a municipality, it's going to likely take 4 or 5 years. That's my guess.
Thank you. That's my only main question. I'll watch for where the committee might take this as an opportunity to maybe investigate. And maybe I'll move it back through to you, Chair Morales. Should this be a next step, I'd be interested, even as a member of council, to look at if there's numbers we formally looked at against kind of that gap, and then likelihood of achievement, and would we fit into a 4 to 5 year potential, so we can make an informed opinion about whether or not it would be an opportune time to at least consider the supporter level with an intention to make some gains over time around achieving the champion level.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Congo. Mayor Lehman, you had indicated before you want to speak.
And yeah, I do apologize because I do have to drop off now just for about 20 minutes, but I should be back. My only question, and thank you, Anne and Jennifer and Rosalind for being here. I understand, and there shouldn't be any difference based on age of the employee, and that's quite right. Is there any distinction made for seasonal versus non-seasonal employees when it comes to part-time within the living wage sort of context? Because to be honest, I think the concern that we have, aside from wage compression, which no doubt will be an issue in all unionized environments, and that would take some real doing to avoid substantial financial impacts. But that might be manageable, and I'd be very interested to hear about St. Catharines and Cambridge and Kingston, and certainly Toronto and others have been through this. But I think the major concern I would have is we hire so many seasonal students here for day camps and for summer maintenance of our parks and so forth. And they really are all or almost all students. And that's just the seasonals. So, that's where, and the other issue there is they're very large numbers. We hire 400, 500 some years. So it's not a small change to go from 14, 15 to 18. And while I'm sure they would all use it for good things, that would be the fiscal piece. So is there a distinction made for seasonal employees?
So again, I think that those summer students would fall into that sort of summer student category that's exempt. If there's some sort of youth employment strategy that's implemented there, then they would be exempt from that. I think most summer students through municipalities are exempt, and usually we see that because they're part of like Canada Summer Jobs, for example, and I'm not sure if that is something that affects municipalities, but if that's the case, then they certainly would be exempt.
Yeah, we always get a group from Canada Summer Jobs, but it's a relatively small percentage of the overall workforce.
Okay.
So I guess the question would be, those 30 would fit the definition, but we probably have 300, 400, 500. So for follow-up, I'd be very interested in the answer to that. And I would be very interested in the experience at other cities. I'm glad to hear we're already a supporter. The only other question I would have is there anything, I know there's no cost to becoming the supporter category. What else is required of the municipality when you become a supporter?
Sure.
That wasn't quite clear to me.
Sure. So there is a small cost. There's an annual fee for certification, and for a public sector employer of your size, it would be $400 a year for certification. So it's based on the number of employees you have. We do have an enrollment form that is completed, and in that information, we ask for how many total full-time employees, part-time, etc., and how many of them are earning at least a living wage. So that helps me to understand what level of recognition you're coming in at, and then we would ask for an implementation plan. So it doesn't have to be super detailed. But a plan that says, how many years do you think it will take you to reach the champion level of recognition? And we don't do any auditing or anything like that. So it's a very simple process. We just really need to see that you have a plan and that you're committed to reaching the champion level, and that there's an understanding that that's part of the program. And then, we would move on from there with we do a whole recognition piece for employers once they're certified.
Okay, thanks for that. So, Mr. Chair, just before I drop off, I guess my comment would be, I think there's some important questions to answer before we could commit to. I wouldn't want us to commit to becoming a champion and not do it. So I think learning about the experience in other 3 or 4 cities might be a way for us to understand what the implications to somebody in our sector of doing this would be. But I'll leave my comments there, and I'll try and jump back on, Serge, in about 20 minutes or so, okay? Thanks.
Wait, before you go, is it your intention to be able to vote on anything that may be brought forward by a member committee or not? Because I don't know if we can tell.
Well, don't wait. Don't wait for me to take the vote at committee. I can always vote on it at general.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chair Morales. I am supportive of this. I actually, Mayor Lehman went and asked the exact same questions and concerns that I have, and it really does fall around the part-time piece, because that's a huge hurdle for obviously municipalities, but I would highly suspect too for a lot of businesses, especially in the service sector. Like, I mean, most recently we saw down in Richmond Hill with the one gentleman who had to leave university because he couldn't afford university. And next thing you know, a GoFundMe's raised over $10,000 for him. I guess my big question though would be, if we do start this process and come in as at the supporter level at the beginning, we've got a business plan that says we intend to be at this level in X amount of years. What implications, if any, are there if we don't reach those goals?
Sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we've had maybe one or two employers that have realized that they just can't make this work for various reasons. Some to do with the pandemic, actually. What we do is we quietly remove people from our website, and then once they're ready to join us again, we would welcome them back. So in terms of that, you know, we certainly wouldn't make a big deal of anything if you weren't able to follow through with the commitment. You know, sometimes things happen, and that's sort of the way we move forward with it. But I think, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's not any implications aside from just, you know, being removed from the program at that point.
And just to give me a little bit of background about your organization, am I safe in assuming that it's a not-for-profit organization that is solely here in the province of Ontario, that is to use your certification process that is just to basically identify corporations that are willing to follow your guidelines with this living wage? Am I safe in assuming that?
So we are a not-for-profit organization. We've been around since 2014, but we actually just became incorporated last February. So before that, we were really a project. We have over 350 certified employers across the province at this point. When we became incorporated, we did so as Living Wage Canada. And so right now we're solely operating in Ontario, but we are part of a community of practice that's right across the country. So we do have conversations with other living wage groups in Canada. And right now, Ontario and BC are the two that have the kind of sizable programs at this point. So we've been starting to have conversations with BC, and in the next few years, we'd like to see ourselves actually become Living Wage Canada and more than just name. So we are looking to expand that way. As we do so, we've already been working closely with other living wage groups and BC in particular. So our programs are pretty much the same at this point. So that isn't something that should affect the way we currently certify employers or the expectations that have been put on our current employers.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. I'm just before I go to you, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Before I go to you, Councillor Kungle, I'm just going to touch base with staff. They did write the report that came back to us. So before we kind of keep going down the rabbit hole of conversation, I was wondering if staff wanted to provide context as to their report. Well, the report speaks for itself, but basically any additional comments based on the discussion that has been had so far. Miss Langlois, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales, through you to the committee and guests. Thanks for the opportunity to add a little more flavor. Jennifer and I actually worked together and had a lot of correspondence, both in advance of their initial presentation in October of 2019 and then following. I certainly would agree with those members of committee who have pointed out that students is an area that we will have to fully understand the nuances of. I think I will point out to you in the memo that we already have connected the part-time grid with the student grid because we have students who move from full-time employment during the summer to part-time employment, but they are still effectively students. And we were experiencing issues when we had a differential in pay between those two grids. And so we've married them up. I will echo Mayor Liebman's comments with respect to summer job service. While we do get some funding, it's not representative of all of our summer students. And because they do work full time, we'd want to fully understand the impact and implications of this. One piece that I'd like to point out is we actually do try to achieve, wherever possible, parity between our part-time roles and our full-time roles, despite the fact that the province of Ontario abandoned equal pay for equal work legislation in their Employment Standards Act. We had already undertaken the activity, obviously, because we were obligated to do so, and made the decision corporately to continue that practice. So effectively, when there is a part-time role that the corporation determines is exactly the same as a full-time role, we have a commitment to pay them at the full-time rate. So just some added flavor so that the committee understands activity that we do. With respect to the students, if there were any exclusions, they would be limited. We do have language in our current CUPE collective agreement that limits our ability to reference students. We can only hire students in the period of April 1st through to September 30th, after which they must be deemed part-time. So that would be language that we would have to address as well. And I think other members of committee have already pointed out, as did Anne and Jennifer, with respect to internal equity and compression. I did have the opportunity to talk to someone in human resources from the city of Cambridge, and they did leave me with that as something that we would definitely have to look at. I will tell you that even when minimum wage was changed more significantly than any other year, we did have some full-time employees and part-time employees, frankly, making commentary to us about the fact that, well, I guess you're also going to adjust our wages. So we will, the compression piece and the internal equity will definitely be a subject that we have to assess.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Langlois. Councillor Congo, your turn. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Through you to Ms. Coleman and any other member, Roz or Jennifer. So maybe just a reflection, and not at all to challenge the integrity of the program. I'm a big supporter of it, but the more and more I hear about this, I keep thinking about, would there ever be data or enough information as you're working with Cambridge, Kingston, or have any intelligence around hesitation of any municipalities, if you've seen it to date? Would municipalities be ever seen to be at a certain size, unique enough of an entity that may always be challenged in meeting that criteria because of that student aspect if there is a large volume? And so just a thought, I guess, is it'd be interesting to see if we would ever expect municipalities, a majority can fit into the model based on that type of constraint. So more of a thought, but also thinking about the AMO, Associations of Municipalities of Ontario, if they're even an audience for any conversation around likelihood of municipalities as a stakeholder in this being ones that would be successful. So sometimes I've seen that in other types of program applications where the structure is just so different at a certain size that, will we, is it likely, or how likely is it that the majority of large cities, large municipalities could achieve this? And is it a structure that fits, or is it modified in reflection of the structure versus never being able to attain something with the intention? And so I thought it's just a thought, but I guess to frame it as a question, would be interested to see if ever that's information that can come back, that can help inform us to say, maybe it's just really focus in on those aspects that might be the areas around the part-time staff. But when we talk about students at a certain volume, you know, you're at a tipping point where this might not really be possible to achieve a champion level based on the structure of the program. So I guess the question would be, as you're going nationally too, are you seeing any types of structures where inherently there's just going to be significant challenges, and it without compromising the program, it might be feedback into how we can all still opt into that intention and being deliberate with that work, and then how do we look at those that will never achieve it potentially?
Yes, thanks. I was cutting someone off.
Oh, no, just saying, go ahead, Ms. Colvin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kungal. I appreciate that comment, and there are some pieces of our program that we have kind of intentionally left a bit vague. One of them being the timeline that it takes to reach the champion level. You know, certainly with other employers, we would expect that they would do it within a much shorter timeline. And I've tried to leave it very gray because for municipalities, because I don't think it's realistic to ask them to do that within 2 years necessarily. With respect to the student piece, particularly the summer student, I mean, I'm probably the one that will be making this decision, but I just want to run things by my board and make sure that I'm not sort of making something up with the summer student piece of it. I think because all of your summer students are hired as students, they'll probably be exempt from the living wage, but I don't want to just say that outright right now before I just speak it over with my board and make sure that I'm making that clearly the right comment there, because our kind of trainee category is pretty clear about the youth incentive piece of the program, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Canada Summer Jobs. And I think that you may just fit into that. And I think your comment is very realistic because, you know, many of our employers are much smaller and we need to make sure that we are realistic for the larger employers. You know, you have a real ability to, you know, by saying you're a living wage employer, I think that really speaks out to other businesses that can consider doing it. So I think that is something to really consider, and you have an ability to really raise a lot of wages in your community.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kungal. Any other members of the committee have any other questions? Okay, seeing none. So we have the memo, as we should have, and I'm seeing no motions coming out of this. None? Twice? Okay, so we're moving on with the agenda. Just a reminder, I guess, agenda committee, any members of council can always bring items there. So thank you to the presenters. Again, if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you can. We won't judge if you want to enjoy your evening. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
I will move on. Section 5, the advisory committee reports. We have 2 advisory committee reports to be received. Can I have a member of the committee put forward the advisory committee reports on the floor to be received? That would be 5.1, Town and Gown, November 25th, 2020, and 5.2, Advisory Accessibility Committee, December 10th, 2020. Councillor Gary Harvey, they are on the floor. Seconded by Councillor Jim Harris. All those in favor, please indicate. I'm also in favor. Perfect. Those are adopted or received. We have 1 recommendation from advisory committee reports, and that the recommendation is for the report of the Accessibility Advisory Committee dated December 10th, 2020, Inclusive Community Grant. I'm just going to check with the city clerk. Did we not adopt this at the last finance meeting? The wording sounds very familiar, or unless this is another one that came out of another accessibility meeting.
There may have been another one that came from another meeting, but we haven't had a Finance and Corporate Services Committee after December 10th. So this would be the first opportunity for it to come to committee.
Makes sense.
The last one was from the accessibility to do with the changing of the sidewalk standards.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. The motion reads as follows: Inclusive Community Grant. Did the Accessibility Advisory Committee support the application for funding through the Inclusive Community Grant administered by the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility in order to support advancements to the City of Barrie's age-friendly community planning efforts and the Seniors Without Walls program? And number 2, that should the funding through the Inclusivity Community Grant be successful, city staff report back to the Accessibility Advisory Committee on the progress of the City of Barrie's age-friendly community planning efforts and the Seniors Without Walls program. Can I have a member of committee move the motion, please? Councillor Robert Thompson. So all those in favor, please indicate. Okay, I'm in favor. That passes. And we now have section 6, the final report, the one we didn't bump up. Report to committee. 6.1 is 2020 fourth quarter internal audit status report, 2020 fraud and wrongdoing program activity, summary of 2020 internal audit activity, and 2021 internal audit work plan. Section 1, that the 2020 fourth quarter internal audit status report be received as information. Number 2, that the 2020 fraud and wrongdoing program activity be received as information. Number 3, that the summary of 2020 internal audit activity attached as Appendix A to the report to the Finance and Corporate Services Committee dated January 12th, 2021 be received as information. And number 4, that the internal audit work plan for 2021 attached as Appendix B to the report to the Finance and Corporate Services Committee dated January 12th, 2021 be approved. Do we need a mover for that, Ms. Cook? Go ahead.
You may want to give members of the committee an opportunity to ask questions in case they have questions before you pass the motion.
But do we need someone to put it on the floor?
Sorry, yes, it does need to be put on the floor, and then you can discuss it. Thank you.
Could I have a member of the floor a member of committee put it on the floor? Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by either that was a seconding it or get it over with. I can't tell from Councillor Harvey. It was okay. We'll take it as the seconding. Opportunity for questions, comments. Let's get it over with. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate. And I am in support. That passes by committee members voting. And that brings us to section 7, adjournment. This concludes Finance and Corporate Services. The meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening, everybody.